Good evening and welcome to this live Q&A. Ask me anything about property investing with myself, Saj Hussain. It's an opportunity for you to get your property investing questions answered. I'm here for about half an hour. I do this every Monday at 8:30 p.m. on various different platforms. That's on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram and Twitter. So regardless of which platform you're watching this on, if you're watching it live, make sure you put your question in the comment section below and I'll pick them up on the screen here. I'll answer those in a short while. So normally what happens with these Q&As is that people for some reason wait till the very end before they start asking the questions. The challenge with that is I'm unable to get through all the questions in that way. So if you've got a question for me, make sure you put it in the comment section nice and early. And as I work through the questions, I'll see them in the order that they've been sent in. And I'll answer them in that particular way as well. So if you've not met me before or come across me before, I've been investing in property nearly 15 years now, based in the Midlands, in Birmingham. Tend to invest predominantly around the Midlands and the West Midlands in particularly. And over the years, I've done various different strategies, from single lets, converting commercial buildings to residential, creating apartments, small HMOs, larger HMOs, and also building houses out the ground, and use various different strategies such as lease options, rent to rent, straightforward cash purchases, unmortgageable properties. I've done lots and lots of things over the last 15 years. Predominantly my strategy is about making money from property and doing that by working with other people who've got the cash and they sort of work with me to fund the property deals so that we create a win-win and everyone makes money from the particular transaction. So that's a little bit about me. Just say hi on whatever platform you're watching, just so I can make sure that the sound and the visuals are working okay before we jump onto the questions there. So just let me know, say a quick hi. So I've got a couple of highs on LinkedIn. Let me know if you can see and hear me okay on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter as well, and also on Instagram. And then we'll get started in a few moments with questions. So just before I do the question, just a little quick update for you in terms of what I've been up to. So this week we've completed, or last week we've just completed a renovation for a 6-bedroom HMO in Birmingham. Nothing special about that. It's the kind of thing we've done many, many times. Just finishing it off for staging and photography. I also do a weekly vlog, so I use the opportunity to do some filming there just to show you that finished project. If you've not already seen the vlogs, I'd encourage you to jump onto the YouTube channel. I'm trying to do a weekly vlog there, just sharing with you the kind of things I'm up to, the strategies I'm using, some of the properties I'm currently working on at the moment, and showing you those. And if there's anything in particular you'd like to see that I'm not already doing, please make sure you put it in the comment section below and I'll look out for those, because I'd like to make sure I'm creating the videos that you want to see. So I've got a couple of properties at the moment sold subject to contract, just going through. I've got a couple more that will be listed over the next literally week or so, get them onto the market as well. And then other new builds that I'm still finishing off, hoping to get those onto the market in the coming weeks as well. I'm still concerned that there'll be a downturn in the property market, maybe later this year or early next year. So I want to do my damn best to get the property sold as fast as I possibly can before the market starts to change. And we're already beginning to notice some lenders are changing their products, reducing their loan-to values, tightening up criteria. These are all indications that the market is going to start changing. I just finished a call now with my my inner circle group, which is my mentoring group, which I have a call with on a group call with them on a Monday. And we were just talking about some of the signs and indications that the market may be starting to change. I think right now, for many people, they don't notice or see anything significantly different. But I expect in the next few months, probably towards the end of the year, and as the beginning of next year, we'll start seeing some of those changes happening in the marketplace, and possibly drops in the market prices as well for properties, and some properties maybe not selling as much. So remember, I'm here for about half an hour to answer your property questions, to help you in your property investing journey, whichever way I can. Make sure you put your question in the comment section below, whichever platform you're watching on, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. Put the comment in and I'll pick it up on the screen here, and I'll work my way through and I'll start answering those questions. And come and say hi as well, so I know that you're on and you can see and hear me okay. So I've noticed some questions starting to come through, so I'll start working my way through those. So the first one, for some reason the name's not showing up, it just says LinkedIn user. The best advice for property investing for starters. If you want to pop your name into the chat box as well, so I can mention who it is. This is a great question. When you're starting out in property, where do you start with property? Well, the great thing about property is there's just so many different ways to make money from property. Ultimately, it's about finding the right strategy for you. And I have a specific video I did on YouTube a little while ago, probably a couple of years ago, about helping you find the right strategy. Ultimately, it's about making sure you're clear in terms of what outcomes you're ultimately looking to achieve. Why are you getting into property? What is it you want to try and create from property? And often people say to me, well, make money. And I say to people, well, what do you mean by make money? So is it a case of building up an income, a monthly recurring income you're looking to do? Is it a case of building up equity over time? Is it really maybe flipping property when you get chunks of cash each time you do a project, you sell, you exit, and you make some profit? So, there's so many different ways, but when you're clear in terms of the outcome you're trying to achieve, then it's looking at which is going to be the right strategy, the best strategy to do that. And also, you'll have factors to consider, such as, where you are in the country. So, for example, the strategy you might be using in London right now may be different to Birmingham, which, may be different to Newcastle. So, depending on your location and also the timing of the market, because your geographic location in terms of the property cycle, if you like, may not be the same throughout the country. So just like I talked about different strategies work in different locations, and different locations will work with different strategies at different point of the property cycle. Hope this is making sense. So these factors all need to be considered. So really, I need to ask you a lot more questions to understand you a little bit better in terms of what you're trying to do. And then other factors to think about is how much money that you're starting with, or access to funds you might have. That might be mortgageability, that might be other investors, and how much time you might have available to put into whichever strategy you're choosing, because some are much more time intensive than others. So for example, if you're looking to do service accommodation or HMOs, they will require a lot more time to get started and get set up. Let's say you're doing single buy to lets, where you just have a family in a house or an apartment, for example. They probably require a lot less work, but they will probably yield you a lower return as well. But then again, if you buy in the right locations, you might find over time that you get significant capital growth. It's less about the cash flow, it's more about the capital growth for you. So there's so many factors to consider. If you ping me a message, I said I haven't, your name's not showing up. If you ping me a message, I'll send you a link to the video I did on finding the right strategy. It's on my YouTube channel, and I think that really I go into this in a lot more detail about being clear about what you're trying to achieve, so that you can find the right strategy that fits for you. So thank you for that question. A couple of people saying hi, Jamie. And BT's asking, when are you going to restart the property meet? Believe me, I am itching to start. If you don't already know, I used to run a monthly property meeting in Birmingham where we get about 100 people. Pretty much every month it'd be sold out, and it was really focused on making sure to deliver great value, a great networking meeting, connecting with like-minded people. But unfortunately, since lockdown, it's all been on hold. I'm hoping maybe October, maybe the time when we'll get the meeting restarted again. But really watch this space, because believe me, I'll be shouting about it from the top of the rooftops soon as we're ready to get started and we can get going again. So I've got a question here from Shamla B. Hi Saj, thank you. This is on LinkedIn. Hi Saj, thank you for all the information you're providing. Highly appreciate it. Could you please let me know how long should we wait before we refinance when a property is bought for cash? Well, Shamla, there will be many factors you need to consider again here. And again, I'm sharing my knowledge and experience with you, as I'm not a mortgage broker or financial advisor. I'm not qualified to give advice in that way. But often if you're buying for cash, it tends to be because you've got a deal, you can buy quickly, and you can get the transaction done in terms of in a much shorter time than there would if you needed a mortgage to do the purchase. Or on some occasions, the property may not have been mortgageable. So for example, let's say it didn't have a usable kitchen, so it's uninhabitable, it gets classed as unmortgageable. It might have, say, a very short lease remaining on the property, again, it becomes unmortgageable. So once you've fixed all these problems, in theory, the property should be mortgageable. However, generally speaking, lenders don't like the idea of you remortgaging within 6 months. When we roll the clock back about 10-ish years and the previous credit crunch, Prior to that, what you used to find is even things like a same-day remortgage. Well, what does that mean? A same-day remortgage was I could have purchased a property for cash in the morning at, say, 10 o'clock, and later that same very day, I could have remortgaged that property and put a mortgage onto it. Now, that was not a purchase mortgage, that was a remortgage. So the figures could have been different. For example, what I paid for it could have been £100,000, it might have been worth significantly more, and I could have had a mortgage of £110,000 by later that same day. But all those crazy things are now stopped. Generally, lenders want to see that you've owned the property for about 6 months. There are some lenders, from my understanding, that will allow you to remortgage within 6 months' time, but you probably don't get the best rates, and there are probably fewer products available. So once you hit the 6-month timeline, you're open up to the vast majority of mortgage products available in the market. There's much more choice and be a little bit more competitive, so you'll probably get a better deal. Hope that helps and answers your question there, Shamila. So next question's from Jamie on YouTube. Hi Saj, if a property has a HMO license historically but is not currently a HMO, the license has run out, will Birmingham City Council permit grandfather rights? So just to give a little bit of context of this, in Birmingham recently, in June, it turned into an Article 4 area. What that means is, prior to that, so prior to June, what we were able to do is to take a normal family house and turn it into a 6-person HMO without requiring any planning permission. So technically, we would be changing its use from that of a C3 over to a HMO for 6 people as a C4. However, those rights, that automatic right, being able to just do that, has now been removed, which is essentially what Article 4 is. So now, when you want to run a new HMO in Birmingham, which wasn't previously a HMO, you have to go and make a planning application. And it's still quite early in the sense I've not seen any applications go through the system yet. So it'll be interesting to see how the planners start responding to those applications. But at the moment, it's still a little bit early. So Jamie, the question essentially is, if property previously was used as a HMO, but at the time of Article 4 kicking in, it wasn't actually being run as a HMO at that particular time, where do you stand? Well, it's not that the property was previously HMO that would be important. It'd be what's its last use. So, for example, let's say the property was being run and operated as a HMO, let's say in March, and then at that point you vacated it to do a renovation on it. And you're renovating it, the 8th of June Article 4 date has kicked in, and now we're in August, and you're about to operate it as a HMO. Is it still a HMO? Does it still have those initial grandfather rights, as they're sometimes called? Well, if its last use was as a HMO and there's been no other change of use, all you've done is improve the property and now taken it to re-occupy it again as a HMO, there shouldn't be any problem in my mind with that. The challenge, however, is if in March it was a HMO, then after March you turned it into a family house. So what I mean by that is you let it to a single family, and now you're thinking of changing it back to a HMO. That, unfortunately, you will not be able to do. You've lost those rights because its use has changed from a HMO to a family house, and now you want to change it back to a HMO. Again, you have to go through the planning permission. So I hope that's given you enough information there that helps you work through your situation. So next question here is from Alex on LinkedIn. Hi Saj, if you're making a purchase subject to planning permission, say a commercial to residential or HMO conversion in an Article 4 area, what would you offer the vendor? Some kind of upfront non-refundable fee of some kind? If there are other interested parties, how do you seal the deal? So a couple of things here, Alex. Of course, ultimately, it's about how much other interest is in that particular property. If somebody's listed a property to sell and your intention is to maybe take it and convert it to a HMO, you have to go through a planning process. You know, it could be a couple of months before you're ready. You've got to prepare the drawings. You've got to get them submitted. You've got to go through the normal cycle of a planning process. You've got to get the response before you can commit to actually purchasing the property. And there may be delays in the planning, especially right now with many planners working from home rather than from the council offices. It means that things are taking much longer to get done. Sometimes planning isn't done in the normal time frame. It can stretch on and take longer as well. So, you know, it can quite easily stretch into a few months. if you were doing a normal purchase, it's not unusual for a purchase to take 2 or 3 months. But then when you added the planning application in as well, you know, even if you started it right at the beginning, you've got to be very, very lucky to be able to get it done in time for completion. Now, in this particular case, I'm guessing it's important that you get the approval so that you're able to do what you want to do with it. Otherwise, if the application was declined or refused for the change, then you probably won't proceed with the purchase. So it's dependent on that. Now, if there are not too many people looking at the property that you are interested in, that makes it so much easier, because then really it's a case of you're offering the landlord that you're going to purchase the property, but you just need a little bit more time. However, in this example, as you've mentioned, that there's other people interested in the property as well. So you have to think about it from the seller's point of view. If you're approaching them and say, look, I want to purchase the property, but actually I need a little bit more time because I need to make a planning application first. And by the way, if the planning application gets declined or it's refused, then I will not be proceeding with the purchase. And on the other hand, they've got other people offering to buy the property as it is. It's very likely the vendor's just going to go with a straightforward purchase because this just seems too complicated. So there needs to be some kind of incentive. You need to be able to understand why is it that the seller might work with you as opposed to what's over here. The easiest way to do that is to some kind of fee, some kind of additional amount of money that you're able to pay. A couple of thousand more upfront, non-refundable, something. It depends on the deal and the numbers and what works for you. Ultimately, what I would try to do is to have a conversation directly with the owner. If it's through an agent, I'll get the agent's permission. I'll get them to jump on a 3-way call or something, so that you can speak to the owner directly and say, look, you know, I'm really interested in the property. I want to work with you. Ultimately, you know, I need a little bit more time. So tell me, what's most important for you in getting this transaction done? So understanding from the seller's perspective, what are the key factors for them? What is it that they will ultimately appeal to them when they want to get this done? Sometimes it might be there's a certain date that they need to work towards. Sometimes they need some flexibility in terms of being able to move on to another property. Sometimes it may just be a case of, look, I just want the highest price. Whoever pays me the highest price, I'll work with you. So you then have to crunch your numbers to see how much more you can pay, and that could be conditional. Generally speaking, I would prefer only to pay the higher price, particularly if it's a fair bit more, as long as you get planning. So not pay any money up front as an unconditional fee. It all depends on, as I said, the vendor's mood and how they respond to you. But those are the options. And if they agree to that, the simplest way that I would approach this, I would do a conditional exchange of contracts. That means I exchange contracts so they're locked in, now they can't back out. And I'm also committed to buy subject to something happening, and in this case, getting the planning approval. So if the planning approval didn't happen, it means I'd be able to back out from the transaction, and they'd be able to exit from that transaction as well. So it really locks them in more so than it locks you in to that particular transaction. If you were not to do that, there's nothing stopping the seller agreeing to you, then a week later changing their mind and deciding they want to sell to somebody else. So you want to be able to lock them into the deal, so you're not spending all this time and money trying to get a planning application through without having the certainty that they will actually sell to you. So Alex, I hope that helps. Let's see how we're doing. So next question is on LinkedIn. So I'm not sure why the LinkedIn names are not showing up right now. It says, do you offer some sort of coaching for those who are new to property investing? So I don't do coaching as such. I have a mentoring program which is called the Inner Circle, and we have 3 levels to that, which is the startup, speed up, and scale up. Startup tends to be those that are brand new. So I deliver that support and training with a good friend of mine, Sam Cooper, and that's for people that are brand new to the property journey. The speed up program is for those that are already investing in property, have property that really just want to push forward, they just want to achieve more. And the scale up program, really those that are much more experienced who really just want to kind of get onto a much bigger level. So those tend to be the 3 programs, and they tend to be small groups that I work with. A lot of it is one-to-one support as well, designed by understanding what your goals are, ultimately where you want to get to, understand where you are right now, and how we can support you and get you to that. So that's a program. If you're interested in learning more about that, visit my website, which is hussain.com, and just look up the section under mentoring. That'll tell you a little bit more about that, some videos there as well for you. So, oops, I think I've jumped a little bit. So this question is from Jitin. Saying on YouTube, hi Saj, what are the legal laws behind HMOs? Do you have any checklist templates when going for a viewing? So two questions there. So legal laws, I'm assuming you mean what kind of regulation. There's a number of factors you need to think about when you're doing HMOs. Ultimately, what I would start with, and I'll talk about this in lots of different ways, is you start with the end in mind first. So where is it you're trying to get to? What is it you're trying to do? So in this particular case, when we're looking at HMOs, you want to create HMOs. So what type of HMOs? Is it student HMOs? Is it, say, blue-collar workers? Is it professional ones? Is it for people that are out of work and the government pays for those? Is it some kind of supporting living? There's various different types of HMOs that are in existence and in the marketplace. So depending on what you're creating, how you create that, and some of the licensing, the rules or the guidelines, if you like, are slightly different. They're not all exactly the same. But essentially, a lot of the rules around HMOs are about not having too many people, so not over-intensifying the number of people that are actually living in the property, and also being able to keep people safe from fire risks. They're primarily what a lot of the rules and guidances are around. And your local authority, wherever you are looking to invest and set up your HMO, will be able to give you some pointers, because they vary from area to area. They're not all necessarily the same. So, for example, what they do here in Birmingham, might be very different to what they do, say, in Northampton. So it's important to talk to your local authority about what they want. But mainly, you want to understand what the planning requirements are and what the licensing requirements are as well. And when we say laws, a lot of them are guidelines as opposed to laws that we're talking about. So I hope that helps you there, Jitin. So next question is from Bash Ali on LinkedIn. Salam Saj, how are you? Why didn't you start virtual meetings? And I suggest you start one. If you need help, let me know. So Bash, thank you for that. I've been running networking events for many years, and what I find is the reason I tend to organize and run them, because I think it's a great way to build relationships and meet people on a one-to-one basis. That's, I think, a key part of meetings. So when the meetings have gone online, many people have done online. I think some of my friends and colleagues are running online meetings. I think they're doing a phenomenal job. There's so much choice out there. If I'm not really going to add anything different, I thought there isn't any point for me to be doing that. There's plenty of choice right now. People do. I think this is more value add. That's what I believe is more value add. In fact, let me know if you find this more useful than maybe a regular online property meet, where really your property questions are being answered. So I'm a big fan of kind of face-to-face, and this is, if you like, my in-between thing there until we start running our meetings again. As I mentioned earlier, I'm dying to get those meetings started. I think it's a fantastic environment for people to come together and learn from each other. And also, as I said, it's a way I've grown my network over the years as well. So thank you for that, Bash. So I've got a question here be passed over to me from Instagram, which is not showing up on the on my screen over here. Ice Think Tank. Hi Sam. I think it's Saj, but we'll let that one go. I've got 50k investment. I'm new to property. What advice would you give me? Actually, apologize, correctly, Saj. Thank you for that. This kind of goes back to the question earlier. I think if it may not be much benefit for me trying to add more to what I was saying earlier on right now. If you send me a DM, what I'll do is I'll send you a link to a video I've done specifically on trying to find the right strategy. You really need to start with the end in mind. What is it you're trying to achieve with your £50,000 investment? So it's not just the fact that you've got access to 50,000, how much time you got, what skills you're going to bring, where are you in the country, what resources do you have around you, what other funds can you raise, mortgage ability, borrowing from other people or investors that might want to work with you. All those things need to be looked at in a holistic way before you can make a decision. I think it's really difficult for me just to give a short answer in that way. So I hope that helps. Send me the DM and I'll send you a link to that video. So next question from Az on Facebook. If you only have one property on rent, is it as viable to open a limited company? So this is really more around tax and Section 24, where now as property investors and buy-to-let investors, we're no longer allowed to offset the interest payments that you make on your mortgage against your income that you collect. So in fact, you're paying much more tax than you would have ordinarily. But it's not that quite that simple and clear cut. It depends also on your tax brackets, what else you got going on, how much money you're earning overall. So a question like this, as I would just put to your accountant and just get their view on it, because they need to see everything that you're doing, or they'll be aware of that, whereas I'm not necessarily. But you know, if I was pushed for an answer, I would say if you've got one property, you probably don't necessarily need to incorporate that, i.e. move that into a limited company. Your tax situation is probably not going to be such where it'll have such a big impact. Normally, once you've got a handful of properties, then it starts having a bigger impact. And at that point, you certainly want to be investing through limited companies so you can offset all your interest payments. Then again, let's say somebody's buying for cash. If they're purchasing properties for cash, then you know their argument might be very different as to why they should incorporate into limited company status as opposed to doing stuff in their own name, you know, or in a partnership. So I hope that helps. As how are we doing for time? Let's see if we can get a couple of more questions in. So look, I hope you're enjoying this. In fact, let me know, you know, how you're finding this. It was a great question earlier by was it Bash, I think, asked earlier on about not going to do online meetings. As I said, I think, you know, this is a better way for me to deliver value to you. That's just my perception. It'd be good to hear what your views are. Are you finding these useful? Would you like me to do more of them? Also, you know, if you're watching the vlogs, let me know on the vlogs. Give me some feedback on those. Are you finding those useful as well? What else would you like to see on those? And if you find it's particularly useful, I'd ask you to share this with one person. This recording will be available on whichever platform you're watching on after the live. Will be available as a recording. Share it with one person who you think could also benefit from this as well. I'd really appreciate that. So let's see. So next question. This is from Hamza on Facebook. Of course, if anything happens to someone living there and they trip or fall down the stairs, then your company will protect you most of the time from being held personally liable. Also, tax benefits, taking income out through limited companies. This isn't financial advice, and always seek advice. Expert accountant, solicitor. Yes, Hamza, thank you for that kind of adding on to that. It's companies can be seen as an additional layer of protection because they're a separate legal entity from you in this country. Next question from Aftab on LinkedIn, and I'll see if I can do one more after this before we finish. Hi Saj, if you have several self-contained studios in a house, do you require a HMO license even if it is a single room? Now, generally speaking, if you've got self-contained apartments within a building and they're all fully compliant with building regs and when they were done and the planning permission and stuff was in place, then you shouldn't need a license. However, there are many properties that were converted many years ago that weren't necessarily compliant to building regs, but because they were done such a time ago, they've now got established use. Some of those may still require a license. It's best to check with your local authority what their particular requirements are. There's also a certain type of license, a certain type of HMO, which has now slipped my mind. If you ping me a message after, I'll look it up and I'll send you some details on that. But I'd say it depends. You need a little bit more information in terms of when and how it was converted to a block of self-contained apartments. Planning and building regs is what you need to look at as well. So I've got quite a few more questions. I've got questions on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram. I'm not going to be able to answer all those right now. I'll see if I can get one more question in. So we've got this one from YouTube, which is Kailash. Hi Saj, is now a good time to release equity to renovate my buy-to-let property to increase net cash flow and then use the excess to invest into BRR or commercial residential conversions? I think, Kalpesh, now is always a good time to be investing in property. Of course, you have to take the longer view. Now, particularly when you're talking about buy-to-let for the long run, let's say the market crashes and there's a 15 or 20% drop later this year or early next year, first quarter of next year. So that will cause many people to panic. Well, the reality is if you're keeping property for the long term, your rent is still going to be the same. You'll have your mortgage in place. It's not going to have an immediate impact on you if you don't sell or need to remortgage. And if you're buying for the longer term there, this will just ride itself out. Property works in cycles. It goes ups and downs, and it always has done, and it probably always will do. So you're never going to be able to time it exactly, but if you're investing for the long term, and if you've got funds available right now, let's say you improve your current property, you improve the cash flow, and by remortgaging, you've got some cash that you're sitting on, and if the market changes, you'll be in a very good position with that cash. As I say, cash is king, to be able to take advantage of some of the opportunities that will probably start appearing if the market slows down and crashes. Because ultimately what that means is the supply and demand balance shifts. Right now, there's a shortage of stock and there's a massive demand. There's a huge pent-up demand for people wanting to buy property. The hunger is there, but there just isn't enough stock to feed all that demand. So that's why prices are quite strong. Property sells very quickly, and many people struggle to find the deals. But when the market shifts, the tide changes, and fewer people are buying or investing because there's more fear and uncertainty in the marketplace. What happens then is the prices start to fall. Either they level off first of all, or you'll see a decline in the properties. And if there's also an issue of liquidity in the marketplace, which is what happened in the last credit crunch, i.e. there's a lack of money available to buy, then prices fall very, very sharply. Now that may not happen this time round, but there probably is going to be a slowdown. There'll be a drop in prices. There's still too many factors to consider. Right now, there's too many moving parts and variables to really be able to see which way the market's going to go. And it's still quite unpredictable, but the general feeling is the prices will fall. And if you're sitting on cash and there's much more stock out there, there's fewer buyers, you'll be able to cherry pick the best deals. So I'd say you'd be in a good position to have cash ready to be able to buy when those opportunities come along. So hopefully you found this useful. Thank you so much for spending your time with me. I just got this passed to me. Yes, if I was unable to get your question answered, please ping me a message. What I do is this every Monday at 8:30 p.m. on various different platforms. I'm here really to help you. I don't know everything there's to know about property, but I've got a huge amount of knowledge I'm very happy to share with you and to help you with in your property investing journey. Make sure you're here nice and early, 8:30. Get your question in, and I'll do my very best to get that answered. And I ask for one thing, which is share this video with one person you think that would benefit from watching. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you again next Monday.